Tomorrow Never Knows with me, Bob Wilson, and Sir Warren Brown of the Beatles Kingdom. Our guest is Anthony Rotunno. Anthony is an English teacher, a musician, a blogger, and a podcaster from Egham, a town in England that's so small, some of the people who live there have never yet heard of it. But he's also lived in Thailand, Laos, Italy, and Spain as well. He's been a Beatles John Lennon fan for 30 years, and about a year ago, he put his knowledge of John Lennon to work by the Glass Onion on John Lennon podcast, a deep dive into John Lennon's life, music, and complex psychology. I recommend it highly. We stole that introduction from Jude Kessler, but I do recommend him highly because she had such a nice introduction. And before we started the show, Anthony was an English teacher to me, teaching me to say the name of his town and different things, which I appreciated. So welcome, Anthony.
Hi, Bob. Hi, Warren. How are you?
Welcome, Anthony.
I've got to stop laughing at my own joke. Whenever anyone reads that thing about no one in Egham having heard of it, I've got to stop laughing at that. It's not a good joke at all.
Yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
But
Great to be
before
here.
we start more business, I have to say hello to our sponsor. And who is our sponsor? Beatles Magazine.
And Bob, you and I were talking about JFK, etc., just before the program started.
Yeah.
I'm very much versed on sort of, I like to call them alternative explanations because conspiracy theory is a derogative phrase.
Well, the CIA set that up. I mean, you probably saw
Right.
that document. Yeah, call them buffs and call them conspiracy theorists.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I had a blog and I've appeared on a couple of those, I'm going to say truther podcasts in the best sense of the word.
You would be real nice going on the show with John Barber.
Right. Is
He was involved in I don't know if you know who he is in England.
No.
He had a show called Real People in the 70s, which became a huge sensation. And people would come on and home filmed videos, show for for fun. But when Garrison was doing his business, he had him on to interview him, and he lost his job because of it. And then later on TV, he had him on a different show he was doing besides Real People. And he gave him a full interview, which he wasn't really giving to people and such. And the TV company butchered the video. And they said to him, like, how many shooters were there? Barber asked Jim Garrison, and Garrison said, probably 3. And then they said, well, how many total people would know what was going to happen? And he said, estimating probably 34. So the network took the tape and cut it. And when they said how many shooters were there, they had him say 34 to totally discredit the interview. So just the fact that they would do that tells you something's like really wrong. But that all happened with John Barber, and he knows, Garrison fairly well, and he has a lot of stories about that.
Interesting. I mean, I used to listen through the internet to Art Bell. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
I don't think too many people in England will know him. We have a guy called Howard Hughes, who's obviously nothing to do with your Howard Hughes.
Yeah.
He has a show called The Unexplained, which I think you might like that. That's you can get the podcast on iTunes. But the reason I mentioned it is that I've stockpiled a lot of episodes of my show, so I'm going to be recording it in about 3 weeks. I'm going to be doing one on the assassination because I don't have I've got 3 weeks to kind of research it because I was saying to you before a few years ago my knowledge of this was very sharp, but
before a show you have to, like, I always go over notes and stuff. I never just do a quote.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot to read and stuff, but I'm having this guy on who has he uses conspiracy, the word conspiracy in his podcast, but again, not as a pejorative, as a because he's talking about conspiracy.
Attract an audience
as well. Yeah. I mean, he admits it because he's managing to make a living. This guy from podcasting. But anyway, we're going to be doing a seriously deep dive because some of his podcasts are like 5 or 6 hours, so I don't really have any time limits, so God knows how long that'll go, but I'll let you know and I'll send you the link and everything.
I'd love to hear that one.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
And please send me any kind of pictures that you'd like to put on the show, or any links or stuff like that. You can send them to Bob and I'll put them on the show for you.
All right, let me make a note. Yeah, Bob, I'll email you all my music ones, okay? I'll put them all in one podcast.
YouTube is starting to hit the regular JFK shows. This guy, Brent Holland, has one, and it's very mainstream, sort of. I mean, he goes into the truth, but there's nothing objectionable in it, and they just pulled some of his shows off, and they're not, in any way that radical. So they're starting to hit on the JFK topic on YouTube.
Yeah, this guy I had on my show, YouTube are treating him quite badly as well. So he abandoned his channel, actually.
Wow.
I mean, obviously his stuff's very contentious because he covers stuff like Sandy Hook, and a lot of people, probably quite rightly, don't want to listen to that,
Right.
Well, I mean with some of these things, I'd put nothing past some of these people who perpetrate.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at evidence because this guy is fairly sort of dispassionate about it. He's not kind of Alex. Well, I guess you guys have heard of Alex Jones, right?
Yeah, I think Alex Jones, they just mock him, but he's come up with an awful lot of things were true.
I was going to say in the beginning, 10 years ago, when I was listening to him, he was breaking ground, because he was digging up stuff that he's on the record, like Operation Northwoods and the Gulf of Tonkin, and it's on the record. There's no argument about those. But obviously,
my friend Doug Horn worked for the Assassinations Record Review Board, and he's the one who found the Woods documents.
Yeah, because was it 78? They concluded that it was a conspiracy, JFK, didn't they?
And then they tried to water down the conclusion by saying it was the mafia, and then they tried to water it down further by trying to all the acoustic evidence into question. But to me, they found a piece of occipital parietal bone, the Harper fragment, laying in Dealey Plaza. So how often do you walk down the street and find a piece of the president's head, which came out the back? So I don't really think there's an adequate way to explain that from a shot from the back.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of doing another podcast. I'm hoping to emulate this guy, and actually, I would like to. If I had a podcast that I really think is worth monetizing, I'm not afraid to do that because I'd like to spend my time researching and doing this because I love it. I love podcasting.
Well, we love to have you on, and you can do a JFK podcast. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'd have to get up to speed because it's a hell of a lot. But I'm thinking of transitioning eventually, maybe in 6 months, to a more general podcast.
Right.
Kind of tackle these things.
Yeah, you got some interesting stories, and a lot. You seem to be very intelligent, and it'd be interesting. I think.
Well, I read a lot. I'm kind of addicted. That's another thing, actually, weirdly, I got from John Lennon, because John Lennon was a huge book reader and was just constantly feeding his head with knowledge. So I have to credit him for that, because I wasn't really a book reader when I was a kid. I used to like listening to the radio. I was very much a radio kid more than a TV kid. But through John Lennon.
No, sorry.
Through John Lennon, I became a kind of a book reader, and now I'm obsessed. I've got better habits.
That's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a good thing.
But this podcasting, I love it. It just seems so natural. It's one of the things I could do. Like if I was really tired, sometimes I have been really tired when I've done my show, and then as soon as I click the microphone on, I'm there. It wakes me up, and
Same here.
Yeah, it's just go great, isn't it? It's like being on stage, or being.
To my personality, it's better. Like I would dread being on stage. I did it once, and I couldn't wait to get off. But this, I feel really comfortable and such.
Yeah. No, I do as well. Stick the mic on, and I just. It's great.
Yeah, Bob tells me constantly that he gets a lot of energy, and he puts forth a lot of energy when he gets on the air. So.
Yeah.
Then when the show's over, like I crap out.
Yeah. But I'm absolutely. Some of these shows I've done, I'm just absolutely exhausted.
Right.
Because we did. There's a guy called Ken McNabb, who's a lovely guy. He's a Scottish guy, and he just did a book last year called "And in the End," and it's about the last year of the band.
Right.
And he and I, what happened was that his book goes month by month. So we decided to go month by month, but of course then you're committed. Like if you get to May and you've already done an hour and a half, you can't stop. You've got to keep going through. You can't say, we got to May, we'll just skip through to December. You can't. you got to do the whole month. And we had 3 Skype talks, and we did nearly 4 hours.
Wow.
And I put out about 3.5, and it was fantastic. It was just so cool. It was great.
Right.
Another interesting thing about JFK, if you ever want to cut somebody off who's attacking, your point of view, is Oswald. They did a paraffin test on him, and they announced, to see if you fired a rifle, and they announced he failed it, meaning he fired a rifle. And then the documents came out, and it came out he didn't fail the paraffin test. He was clean. He didn't fire a rifle.
Wow.
And
is there one book that you think is the best? I think you told me, but I didn't write it down.
Noel Twyman has a book that's only out as an ebook that I think is really, really good. And I think the most authoritative book was by, you probably heard his name, Fletcher Prouty.
Oh, yeah. That was the Donald Sutherland played that character.
When I was 19, I wrote to him, and he wrote back snail mail. And he sent me his books and articles and like 8-page letters. And that was really how I learned so much through him. He taught me like the outlines and how to think. And then when I read the other books, because he was in that business, he was in Black Ops, and he was the number 2 guy, I think, in America in that. And he, like, through his expertise and me just listening, like I learned so much because he actually took the time to answer my letters. I got some 8-page letters from him.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was his famous quote about society and war? It's in the film.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. When he goes through the dialogue, politics is power. Kings are killed.
Yeah, and it's something like I can't remember what it was. But do you guys know much about Vietnam, like beyond the kind of mainstream story? Because I'm going to do a blog post, and because I might be consulting you then, because I'm going to do a review of the documentary Hearts and Minds.
Well, Prouty went deeply into Vietnam, and he only tells first-hand experience stories, which is why he's a good source.
Yeah.
And he talked about how when they were setting it up and they were manipulating things to get us involved, and he pointed out that in the Pentagon Papers, they have like the Senator Gravel log, and in it Kennedy's not buried yet. And it says Henry Cabot Lodge, the ambassador to Vietnam, is meeting with the president. Now, Kennedy was dead. So on Sunday, Johnson is meeting with Henry Cabot Lodge, and they don't announce in the log that it's President Johnson. So they were already starting to get machinations going about Vietnam within days of Kennedy's death. And another one was within 2 weeks of Kennedy dying, 2 or less than 3. The DMs were murdered in Vietnam, and they said Kennedy found out he was shaking. They tried to have Howard Hunt plant a cable that said Kennedy ordered it, and he got caught doing it, putting a fake cable in. And they said the truth was Kennedy was shaking because they went ahead and killed him without his permission, which was something he didn't want. And then 2 weeks later, they got him.
Jesus.
So you had the whole leadership of the DMs and Kennedy dead within like 2.5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I'd never heard of Ken Burns, but I know he did a documentary series on the Civil War. And did you see any of that? His one about Vietnam a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the beginning of it, but then it's like, well, where's the CIA? Like, where's the Phoenix program?
Right.
It was just nothing at all, and then it seemed to just go into sort of very emotional territory. And obviously, there's emotion. I'm not unemotional.
He probably didn't want to touch those other things.
No, I mean, he didn't mention Cambodia at all, the secret war in Cambodia. He didn't mention the Phoenix program, and every time he had a CIA person on, they said they were from USAID. I don't know if you've heard of that. Some kind of
USAID was like, it's like a big front organization.
Yeah, but it's sort of a very nice sounding organization. But it's like the CIA weren't there, and the drug, because there's a huge drugs element. Of course, you probably know that.
Yeah.
It's it's such a fascinating story. But Vietnam as well, I'm going to need probably 3 months to research that.
That sounds like it'll be a great show.
I mean, it'll be a blog post first of all, and then I'll probably make a show out of it. But
by 1974, it was proven Kennedy was right on Vietnam, and then the military-industrial complex, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Nixon and Johnson were proved wrong, but they never, gave Kennedy the nod. But another interesting, unexplored part of it is Nixon was Nixon. He had his definite issues, but he cut the Joint Chiefs of Staff off, which is interesting because Kennedy also found that they had lied to him. And when Nixon was trying to get us out, the Joint Chiefs, he cut them out from the plans he was making with Kissinger to try to withdraw. And a soldier, I think Air Force, named Charles Radford was stealing documents from the bags of Kissinger, I believe. And trying to think, the other guy was also in Bush's White House way at the top. And he was leaking documents back to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So they were actually spying on Nixon to see what he was doing about Vietnam. And that's really where the leakers came from. And part of it was actually, even though people don't like Nixon at the name, at that point, he was trying to end the war. And the Joint Chiefs were against it. And they actually were spying on Nixon to find out what he was trying to do. And they think Watergate might have come about in part because they were setting him up to get him out because they felt betrayed by him trying to end the war. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't have incredible bombing campaigns along the way.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, but up to that point, he was trying to get us out without a loss in the war. And at that point, he was impeached. And his fight was with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which also was a large part of Kennedy's problems.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they're this kind of, I don't know if is it always the same people in the Joint Chiefs? Do they stay there for 30 years or so? Because it seems
they're in for long periods of time.
Yeah.
But with Kennedy, I think he trusted Maxwell Taylor, and he was the one he was trying to have navigate the waters from. But Fletcher Prouty actually met with the Joint Chiefs on a daily basis, which is why he's a great source. He has a book about Vietnam. It's on Amazon.com.
Who does? Sorry, tell me again.
Fletcher Prouty.
Oh, as well on Vietnam. Okay.
He has a book on JFK and Vietnam, and I think since his account is first person, and I find him credible, and some of the stories are kind of incredible, it's a great place to look.
Oh man, I tell you, if I could just, if I didn't have to earn a crust, I'd love to take 6 months off and just research this full time. That's what I'd like to be doing, to be perfectly honest. But
yeah,
all right, I better go because I'm tired.
What time is it there?
It's only 8:30, but I was doing some editing earlier as well. Just too much.
So I'm just trying to figure out, you're 5 hours ahead of us.
5 hours, yeah, that's right.
Okay,
yeah.
It's good to keep in mind for future shows.
Yeah. If you could possibly send me the file of what we've been talking about just now, just so I can make a note of these books and everything.
Yeah.
Would that be possible?
Yes, that would be possible.
It's just the very end, and then the rest of the show, I'll wait till you put it online, and I'll download it.
Usually, because it's so long, it's going to come through Google. Are you able to get it off of Google?
Oh yeah. Google Drive or something.
Yes,
like
Google Drive.
Yeah, I have a Google Drive account. So
and just this week, I came across something in JFK I'd never learned before from a book by Jerome Corsi. But if I look in the book again, I could tell you the snippet of what I picked out because it blew my mind. They were trying to say Clay Shaw was linked to Centro, Permindex and Centro Comercial Mondial in Europe. And they said it was a way that funneled money for assassinations.
Oh my God!
And Jim Garrison called him on it, and it was from an Italian newspaper. At first, did an expose, La Paese Sierra, if I pronounce it correctly. And there was a link to it that put Shaw and Permindex directly, linked through this figure in Dallas. And I can send you that. I can maybe scan the pages and email it over to you.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that's fine.
But it was when I read the link, my jaw dropped because they were saying they were after Charles de Gaulle as well. And on the day of the assassination, Michael Mertz was an assassin. And he was the kind of person they'd use from the OAS, and he was deported from Dallas on November 22nd.
Wow.
He was in Dallas that day, and nobody can answer as to why. He came out, he was visiting a dentist who he knew from the service, quote unquote, but he was in Dallas, and he was a professional assassin and deported that same day or the next day. I believe it was the same day.
Wow.
All right, Bob, let's let him go.
We can talk
forever about this.
Well, like I say, 3 weeks. I'm going to be doing this John Lennon one, so I'm going to get going on that tomorrow. I think.
All right, that
But
sounds
I'm sure a lot of the same territory is going to come up. I imagine.
That's great. And please send any photographs,
Oh yeah,
recordings, anything you want to Bob, and I'll incorporate everything I can in the show.
Okay, tomorrow morning. Well,
No,
tonight or
and
tomorrow morning, I'll do
if
that.
you send it to my email instead of Messenger, it comes out better.
Yeah. Okay. So music.
To send over to Warren then.
Should I send it?
It's easier for me to forward it to Warren in email.
Okay. So I'll email it all. Yeah, I'll do it tomorrow morning.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. It's been really
Yeah,
good.
no, thank you. You were easy to talk to. You're a great singer. You're a great guitar player, and I'd love to have you on again.
We'll do it.
You have a good night, my friend.
All right.
And
Thank you.
I enjoyed it very much.
Me too. All right. All the best, guys.
Yep.